Hello, and welcome to Myths and Stories, a Destiny podcast. I guess specifically a Destiny lore podcast. We have been covering the Awoken and the history of the Awoken, and I think, and Myth, please, for the love of God, tell me I'm correct. This might be the last part of it.
I am confident that this is the finale of our History of the Awoken series.
This is this is literally the longest series ever. This just keeps going, but that's fine. It's fine. So we're gonna hopefully wrap it up tonight, and then we got some special stuff planned for next week, which we're super excited for. So last week we ended with Uldren surrendering himself to the the prison of elders, run by Varix, and specifically surrendering himself to Petra and Cade and everyone that's been hunting him since he's been going mad with Fickrell the fanatic and all the barons. And so now we're going to kind of pick it right back up with that, because this again, as far as the Awoken's concerned, their history is one of the most recorded histories. And I personally think we have Mara herself to thank for that. I think she wants her people to be remembered. She wants that I don't know that she wants the recognition of it, but she wants everyone to know that her people mattered. And so that's where a lot of her history, or a lot of the history of the Awoken, comes from, is that it is Mara trying to keep this idea of this people, this faith of this people going, to help save the soul system from the bigger bad. But yeah, so we're gonna jump right back into the prison of elders, right back in with Uldren, who is at this time come fully corrupt from Riven. He had this thing in his eye that was driving him mad, and it was literally Riven. Like, she is in complete control of him now, and he has some interesting conversations with his warden, uh, and not just like Andy Dufresne style ramblings with his warden. He has some truly genuine, like, life altering talks with Varix.
Yeah, so if we recall from the ending of our last episode, and say Aldrin is convinced that Mara is trapped in the Dreaming City, and that they've closed the Dreaming City off with her still in it, and that he needs to save her based on the conversation he had with Ilan. And Ilan was telling him, "No, Aldrin, she's dead. Like, you need help. She's gone." But Aldrin is in his craziness at this time. He is not only hallucinating hearing her, he is now seeing her. And the image of her that he is seeing is talking to him. So to him, he's like, "No, Ilan, she's right here. She's telling me that she needs me to come free her, come free her." And whether it be in a sudden bout of lucidity or part of a larger plan, the very next entry shows Aldrin surrendering himself to Cade and Petra and to the prison of elders. And for those that are not aware, or maybe didn't play D1, the prison of elders at this time is presided over by an Elixni from the House of Judgment named Varix, who we next see in the Beyond Light story. But before his time with Beyond Light and Aramis and whatnot, he was the lone warden for the prison of elders, where Uldren was being held, along with Fickrell and all of the other Scorn barons. And we get a little peek into the prison, and there are many conversations between Varix and Uldren. We're not going to go over all of them tonight. I just kind of picked one because I don't want to focus too much on Varix. that shows how Uldren kind of got under his skin a little bit and did slowly but surely convince Varix that uh, Uldren maybe knew a little more than Varix did about what the future for the Elixni people might be. So we're going to start with a chapter called "The Spark" from the book Most Loyal, and it goes like this: Varix, ever the loyal, did as Petra commanded. Access to the lowest cell block was reserved strictly to the warden and the regent commander. Unfortunately, this meant that every menial operational task was left to him. Meal distribution, waste disposal, between the 8 barons and the Awoken prince, his new chores left him little time for judgment. Thrice per day he visited the block, and thrice per day he had to manufacture excuses to the local corsair detachment for why the lowest level of the prison was now off limits. Rumors swirled. It was not unknown that Petra and Cade 6 had smuggled some unknown high-value prisoner, a humanoid prisoner no less, a first for the prison of elders if the rumors were true. But Varix assured everyone with the gumption to ask that his judgment of the scorned barons was a sensitive process to be conducted in private. Petra herself did not help extinguish the scuttle. She was less than adept at the art of secrecy, and everyone knew it. She responded to any bold queries with a stern, "It's none of your concern," which itself was tantamount to validation that some of the rumors were true. If only she'd found joy in her Techian training. If only she'd learned more from the Queen. Each time Varix performed his rounds, he asked himself what loyalty, if any, he owed to the prince. And each time he stopped short when he bore witness to the prince's ramblings. Today was no different. There Uldren sat, elbows atop knees, staring into the same dark corner of the cell, face concealed by his long black hair, seemingly communing with nothing. I see now. Yes, that's good. So good. More listening, more nodding. Then that's what we shall do. And look, sister, he is already here. Uldren fell into silence, visibly relaxing. After a moment, he looked back over his shoulder and through the porthole to meet Varix's eyes. Your Grace, Varix burbled. Varix the Loyal, Uldren smirked. Varix the Spark. Did you have something to say to me, or are you content to play the spying crow? And there it was again, that fleeting pass of inky darkness that momentarily snuffs the glow of Uldren's eyes. So Varix said nothing. Whether frozen in terror or simply at a loss for words, he could not say. Uldren leaned in, placed a finger against his lips, and spoke low. I have a secret for you, Varix. I know you want to hear it. Varix answered with a single drawn-out, and ever so slight, nod. Your Kell lives, Uldren whispered. He leaned in a little closer and asked the one question Varix had never been able to answer. Do you know where your true loyalties lie, Varix? Uldren didn't wait for a response. His eyes almost immediately darted over his shoulder toward the shadowy corner that had become his obsession. Of course we can trust him, dear sister. He is the most loyal. And that's the end of that lore card.
Holy cow! It still always amazes me to see how I don't want to say crazy Uldren is at this point, but how possessed he is. Like he the I, a lot of people hold Crow responsible for Uldren and all everything that Uldren did throughout his life. But I think even at this point, Uldren is gone. Like, I mean, and we've mentioned this several times before, back in the Black Garden, back, him leading into the fanatic and all that stuff. He is truly gone. There's nothing of him anymore.
No, he is a madman talking to a corner, a dark corner in his
Yeah.
cell. Like, he is.
Yeah.
There's nothing left of the Uldren. What the Uldren we knew, let alone the Uldren the Awoken used to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and I do like I do like the question that he poses here, right? Like, do you know where your true loyalties lie, Varix? Like, it's almost like trying to feed him. Uldren is trying to feed Varix just a little bit of doubt, like, as Varix being a fallen or a fallen slash Eliksni would he would the Eliksni houses are very steeped in loyalty.
Yeah, it's very much attacking kind of Varix's sense of duty, because he had Varix, I think, even more so than some other members of the different fallen houses, like, still really prides himself on his past and being a part of House Judgment.
Because he's the last surviving member of House
Yeah,
Judgment,
the last
correct?
one we know of. But
Okay.
he very much like feels like he still needs to hold the responsibility that House Judgment used to hold.
Oh, sure. Well, and even in being the last of the house judge, you would think that being the last of the house, he would just take up the mantle of Kel, but he doesn't even call himself a Kel.
No.
Like, that's how deep their loyalty is. Like, he still believes in the idea of a Kel of House Judgment.
And well, his Kel in this case is Mara. Uldren is telling him, like, your Kel still lives. He's telling Varix, Mara still lives.
That's right. That's right. Because he swore loyalty
Mm-hmm.
to Mara after the Reforce. That's right.
So this is a brief glimpse, and there's a lot more to it, which we will no doubt go over when we talk about a like history of the Eliksni or a
Oh, hell
feature
yeah.
piece on Varix, perhaps. But regardless, there's a lot that happens here that I'm going to breeze over a little bit to try and maybe contain us within our normal time constraints. We'll see.
Good luck, friend.
But as this kind of conversation alludes to, Uldren is spending over a significant amount of time. I believe it's a number of months that Uldren spends, perhaps longer, that he spends in the prison of elders, talking to Varix and kind of twisting him, really getting those psychological digs in about, like, who are you really loyal to? Are you going to follow Petra, who has you do all this grunt work and is not the queen and does not, uphold what the queen was? Or are you going to listen to me, the next in the royal line of the Awoken, who knows all these secrets? And he shows, along with Fikrul, or with the help of Fikrul, I should say, he shows Varix the revival of dead fallen using dark ether.
That's got to be a freaky thing to see. Like, especially since essentially Uldren is the only one that has done or seen it to this point, and to show an Eliksni, hey, I can bring your people back to life, just like almost just like the Guardians, right? Like, I can make this never-ending people for you. You don't have to suffer anymore. That's
So, needless to say, throughout these many months of conversation and shows of power and all of this, he convinces Varix that he should not be locked up in here. He and the Scorn Barons should be allowed to go free and bring on what is next for the Eliksni people and to bring Mara back. And he succeeds in convincing Varix of this. And ultimately, Varix is responsible for the prison break of the Prison of Elders.
And that was one thing that was never really truly shown during the Forsaken
No.
campaign, was that Varix really had a very big role to play in it. But and that's why I love doing these readings too. And I highly recommend all of our listeners go check out some of these lore books for yourselves. Go read some of these entries. There's a lot of story that's happening behind the scenes when you're just playing through an expansion or a season.
Yeah. And the prison break of the Prison of Elders is where we start the Forsaken expansion. And this is where this episode tonight is going to be a little different than many of them we did throughout this series of the Awoken, where we have now entered the territory of, we certainly have readings we're going to do, but so much of the story of the Awoken and the major players in the Awoken is told at this point in the gameplay and in the cutscenes.
This is truly to me where Bungie writing has taken off. Like Forsaken was we're returning to a storytelling to the player.
So you're going to find, rather than us reading things, we're going to be doing a lot of describing of a scene or an event that took place in game. So just be prepared for that. There's still going to be plenty of readings that are relevant to stuff going on, but some of the major bits were cutscenes or were things you were playing at the time. With, unfortunately, Forsaken no longer being available, we're going to try and at least get the spirit across if we can.
Yeah.
So our very first mission of Forsaken starts with this prison break, as we said. Petra has called in Cade, who has called in us for backup, about like, hey, the Prison of Elders is on high alert. Things are going bad. We have a whole lot of VIP cellmates that Cade and Petra put in the Prison of Elders on the bottom floor. How about you come help me deal with them, essentially, is what Petra is asking of Cade. And so we all show up. We proceed through this battlefield of a prison, because Varix didn't just let the bottom floor out, he let all the floors out.
There's so many. There's Cabal in there. There's Hive in there too, aren't there?
Yeah, there's everything. So we're battling our way through. Cade, of course, is doing the same in his very showboaty way. And we get really a great mission where we're going through. Cade's assisting us by like hacking turrets or, opening up access panels for us. And eventually we get to a point where we've contained most of the craziness on the top floors, but the bottom floor, the VIP cells, those are now being registered as there's activity there. And so Cade, being Cade, decides to take the path of maybe not least resistance, but the quickest route for sure, and jumps onto I don't even know what it was, just a piece of debris, a piece of catwalk, shoots the supporting cables that are still there, and just rides it all the way down to the fiery bottom.
I mean, that's what I would do as a guardian.
Yeah.
Like, you got infinite reses.
And he does. He promptly dies on impact, and is revived by Sundance, his ghost, and finds himself in the middle of this giant ring of just scorn. And up on the catwalk above the scorn are these 8 imposing, twisted figures of the Scorn Barons. Fickrel being one of them, and then the 7 others. And really, really awesome cutscene that I don't know if there's a better cutscene in the game yet of just like a guardian duking it out with a bunch of enemies.
Just pure cinematic.
Yeah. I highly, highly recommend looking up the Forsaken the very first cutscene of Forsaken, or the battle cutscene, I guess, between Cade and the Scorn.
I think of it as being one of the best too, because the at the time Bungie had commissioned two statues, one of Cade and one of Uldren, and I kick myself now for not picking up the Uldren one. My wife wanted the Cade one so bad, and the Cade statue is him standing on a piece of debris with a Scorn underneath him.
Yeah,
So that scene has been immortalized in a statue. Like that's how good this scene is. Like it's okay, back in your cages, and like Cade versus C6, they just like laugh at him type thing. Like it's so good. And then like we see the first usage of Blade Barrage in there. Like it's so good.
it's
Such
just
a good scene.
it's this beautifully rendered and animated scene, and we see Cade. He's being the hunter. He's being evasive. He's dodging and jumping and using his throwing knives, and tries to use a golden gun, but doesn't quite get it. Any hunter in PvP knows that feeling.
Oh man, go to pop it, you just catch a sniper right in the face. You're like, damn it.
But so he's doing well though. He's clearing these guys out.
Because that's the other thing to note too, is there's tons of Scorn down here now.
Oh yes.
Like this thing he's fighting like hundreds of Scorn.
Yeah, so he's he finally gets himself a little bit of breathing room, and he's beat up at this point. He's got, I guess for those that don't know, Cade was an EXO, which is incredible for me to say, but there may be some people that do not know this.
That's true. That is true.
But yeah, he was an EXO, so like part of his jaw is kind of hanging loose. He's got some wiring poking out, and there's some sparks happening. One of his eyes is a little like droopy. And he pops Sundance out, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, I need a little bit of healing here." And we see for the first time on screen the Scorn throughout this entire scene. The Scorn Baron has been climbing around and has climbed up into the rafters and has kind of been watching through the barrel of their gun, and they see Sundance pop out, and they see that ghost and that emission of light, and they line it up and they pull the trigger, and Sundance explodes into nothing but powder and ghost shell.
And we feel that, because at this same time we're racing down to the bottom, and that burst, that explosion of light hits us, the Guardian, and our ghost pops out, and he's like, what the hell was that? Like it shakes the Guardian and their ghost. Like it's oh
yeah, our Guardian has been fighting their way down the long way this entire time, and yeah, you get to the point where you're just like a doorway or two away, and you see in game, playing through the mission, you see that wave of light hit you, and both your Guardian, your ghost are like, oh no, something awful just happened. And it goes back to the cutscene, and Cade is still beat to hell. He didn't get healed. He is now lightless. He is now ghostless. It's just him and his trusty hand cannon Ace of Spades. And he kind of resigns himself to like, this is it. This is it. I'm coming home, Ace, is what he says. And he takes a sensor to the face, one of the like fiery maces of the Scorn, gets driven through a wall, and he's coughing and sputtering, and can barely sit up. And who strolls into the room but Uldren Sov? And Uldren picks Ace of Spades up from the ground and walks over to Cade, and is kind of foot on his chest, barrel pointed down, and there's a little more dialogue to it, but it essentially equated to any last words coming from Uldren. And Cade, in the way he does, says, How's your sister?
Such a good, like, if I had any last words, like, and it's like a fuck you to the guy who's about to kill me, like, how's your sister? She's it's so good. It's so good. If you've never had, if you are a new light and you never did get a chance to play through the Forsaken stuff, I highly recommend go Google those videos. They're probably on the Bungie web, on the Bungie
Oh,
YouTube.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Um, they those in-game cinematics were amazing. They are still what, like, keeps me, like, super engaged with the lore of Destiny.
Yeah. And it goes kind of back to our guardian, um fighting their way through these scorn waves, and that we have Cade on our radar. Our ghost knows he's just on the other side of the story, he's just on the other side, and we push through and we beat the boss of the mission, and we get to the door and you hear that gunshot, and the door opens, and Uldren, flanked by the Scorn Barons, is already fleeing the scene. He's at the exit, holding Ace of Spades, and there is Cade, sputtering his last breaths on the ground in front of us. And our guardian, stops to see, can they do something? Can their ghost do something? Can you anything? And they can't. And Cade's last words are, "Tell the Vanguard they were the best bet I ever lost." And the Hunter Vanguard is silent.
Oh, ah! Okay, I'm not gonna cry, I promise. But yeah, no, but that leads us on this huge hunt through the entire Tangled Shore. Through, I want to say we go to Mars, we go to the EDZ, we go all over the system, hunting down these different barons. Like, there's the rifleman, there's the mindbender, like a baron, a Scorn that has his own ascendant plane. Like, that just blows my mind. The bomber, the madman, like, all these different barons, we hunt them all down and we end them. While we're doing this, Uldren he still has a mission that he's doing. Like, he's still doing something.
Yeah, so our guardian is on a revenge mission. Forsaken is a revenge mission to get
100%.
vengeance for Cade's death. And Uldren has his own mission, and that is what it has always been since the death of Mara, essentially, and that is to free her, to free this vision of Mara that's come to him. And so he's following her instructions to do that. And the very first thing he does after being released from prison, now that he has this Scorn army and the loyalty of those Scorn that refer to him as father, is he takes a trip back home. But it doesn't quite go how you might think. So this is a lore card we're going to read. This is the lore card King's Wrath from the Awoken of the Reef lore book. And it goes like this. Dina twists the emergency transponder until the circuit closes. And for the second time in her life, she feels the crackle of the beacon as it burns itself out, blasting its life into a single radio howl. It means that the Queen's throne room is about to fall. Done, she tells her second. Let's not count on reinforcements. Not our reinforcements, at least. Pods are still coming in from the prison, crashing all over the Vestian outpost. The throne isn't a tactical target. Do you think they'll bypass us? Not a chance, Dina says grimly. Not the littlest chance. The Queen's Guard has, technically, never been defeated in battle. Pride dismisses the House of Wolves' backstab as an act of treachery, not military might. But once more, the fallen are loose in the reef. And if there is no treachery involved, Dina will eat dirt and call it hummus. This reminds her too much of that awful day. So when the voice comes through the door, she calls, "Hold, hold." "Paladin Dina," the Prince of the Awoken calls. "You know that's my throne you're guarding, don't you? May I come in?" "You're not alone," she shouts back. "I have my retinue with me." A few of Dina's people lower their weapons. "Weapons up," she snaps. "We can't trust him to—" Royal overrides slither through the throne room's networks. The doors open and a dazzling barrage of flashbangs plays the royal welcome. Dina stares straight into it, weapon aimed, eyes open, trusting her helmet to buffer her sight, and waiting for the first blue flash of fallen weapons. Prince Uldren saunters in like the belle of the ball, his cocked revolver aimed at the ceiling. "At ease," he says, with a little swish of his cloak, and everyone, Dina included, responds. Just a moment's weakness, just the subtlest flicker of deference, because he is the prince, and it feels so right to have royalty in this room again. Fingers off triggers, weapons skewed a few degrees off target. The impulse is so strong because it jives with Dina's discipline, which has already stepped in to crush the immediate instinct to blow Uldren away. Something's wrong. Something's off. Baseline humans can react to a visual stimulus in less than 200 milliseconds. Awoken, less than 100. But there's a phenomenon Dina and every other royal guard knows well, a trick of the mind called attentional blink. You're waiting for something to appear, a hostile, a gunshot, a loud noise. When it does appear, your attention blinks. You cannot detect a second event if it comes just after the first. So it is with the blue flash of arc rifle fire behind Uldren's cloak. It could go differently still, but there's no one in this room who can easily sight in and fire on their prince. And he has no such reciprocal inhibition. And that's the end of that lore card.
It's interesting the name of this lore card. It's called King's Wrath. And I always thought of it as like Queen's Wrath, right? Like what Shiraido was and what was Petra ever Queen's Wrath?
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah, Petra assumed
Okay,
the
yeah.
role of Queen's Wrath. Yeah.
That's right. Which is like the personal body card to
The second in
said
command.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is King's Wrath in the sense of I am raining down hellfire. I am a wrathful person committing an act of like wrath is feeding me. Like one of the 7 sins is feeding me type thing. Because the very last thing, there's no one in this room who can easily sight in and fire on their prince, and he has no such reciprocal inhibition. They won't fire on him because just him saying at ease. It's like it's so that's such a military thing happening there. Like him just saying at ease, and all of them just instantly going to at rest. Like at ease, like fingers off triggers, guns are down. That split second, and obviously they describe it here, and then the gunfire starts, and everyone in that room is such a trained person that they can't even they don't even realize what's happening to the point to reacquire targets and refire and start firing, that they essentially just get mowed down by um the Scorn Barons behind Uldren. So that's just, but and he doesn't care. He's like,
no, that's what he's there for.
That's literally what he's there for. And then I think as far as scenes go, like he burns that thing to the ground.
Yeah, so immediately after this lore card, or immediately after the events described in this lore card, would be a cutscene that happens in Forsaken, which is Uldren sitting on the throne in the reef that Mara once sat on. And if I recall correctly, you can see bodies of Awoken guards littering the floor around that throne. So none of these guards survived. And
Yeah, this was a massacre.
the vision of Mara is kind of floating around him as he's sitting in this throne, like appearing on one side and then appearing on another.
Free me.
Kind of like inching, edging him on, like, burn it all, be done with it. They didn't come to help me. You're all alone in this. You don't need them anymore, kind of thing. And so he does. He sets the throne room ablaze, and presumably whatever it's attached to,
Sure.
within the reef, and leaves his old home in ashes.
That's just it like that cutscene was so interesting to me too. Like when you first play it through, you're like, is this really Mara? Like, is this surely this
Right.
like the whole time you're doubting your own senses through these cutscenes of like, what the hell is happening? What is going on here? What is this? What is happening?
And I think that's important to point out. Us as the player at the release of Forsaken, we didn't have access to all of the lore that has been describing what Uldren was going through to get to this point.
Yeah,
All of that
we
came
had to
out
unlock
with
all of it.
Forsaken. So us experiencing it for the first time, we were like, the players were kind of thrown for a loop as to like, is that Mara? That doesn't seem like what Mara would be doing. Like, why? This doesn't make sense. Almost throwing us into this mindset of like, what's going on? Something's not right here, making you uneasy about the situation, which a lot of the characters were also feeling the same
Oh
way.
yeah.
Which it was a really cool effect to then go back afterward, fill in the blanks afterwards with the lore cards and be like, oh, this is all the stuff that was happening.
And that's the only part that makes me sad to see parts of the game no longer there. Like that,
Yeah.
but being able to go back and that's why I love that there are I'll call them archives. Yeah, sure. Of these videos on YouTube so you can watch these cutscenes and go, oh shit, this is what was happening. This is, and then like I said, and I always suggest it, read through these cards and watch these cutscenes, and they have such a different meaning to you. Like there's so much more happening in these cutscenes than you can realize.
So that brings us to kind of the next major scene, next major cut scene within Forsaken, which takes place at the Shard of the Traveler. Now, the Shard of the Traveler for players at this point was important because that was where we regained our light during the Red War, through the light that was still housed in this piece of the Traveler that had fallen off. For players more recent, you may know this as the place where Hawkmoon was acquired. And say, that mission isn't around anymore, I guess. So
I was going to say that mission's not in there anymore either. Holy
for
cow!
those that are super recent, it was a place.
Beyond light recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Witch Queen recent, but still. So I say, but there was this piece of the Traveler that had fallen off at some point, and it was kind of in this quagmire, swampy area, and we see Uldren, who is just kind of strolling through this swamp. There's Elixni, there's Fallen on the outskirts, but all of them are giving him a very wide berth. Even they know, like,
oh yeah,
we shouldn't be messing with him.
Well, and he's still got that black mist coming off of his eyes too,
and you can see it really well in this cutscene. Like it's swirling freaky around his eyes, and kind of affecting some of the blue of his skin on his face.
Yep.
Just really looks not right, and his vision of Mara is directing him to the shard, and is telling him, like, we need a piece of it. We need a piece of the light that is in this shard. And so in like a manic scream, he's yelling as he's just emptying the chamber of Ace of Spades, which he's still carrying and using, into this shard of the Traveler, using the bullets to carve a piece out of it. And he pulls this piece out and is kind of like folds into himself a little bit. He's like hugging it, like this is the last thing he needs. This is the final piece to free Mara, to see his sister. And there's this like weird relief, but it's like his body isn't working how it normally
Yeah.
would. It's like his muscles aren't quite listening to him, kind of thing. uh he has this very like alien look to him
Oh
in
yeah.
his movements. But this is it. This is the piece he needs. And our guardian is doing stuff amongst this, mostly hunting down barons and finding
I was going
clues.
to say we're
uh
fighting so many barons at this point. Like there's 8 of them, and I think what we because this whole time, like before we start going through everything, we meet with Petra and the spider, which wow, spider's not in the game either.
nope.
We meet with them in Spider's Den, because Spider's basically run, like, ever since the fall of the Awoken, the Spider's been kind of running the reef, and he's basically like a black market smuggler dealer. And so he's like, yeah, I need you to take care of these barons because it's just a mutual problem for both of us. And so we're doing that, and I I I I truly think that was like kind of the goal here, right? Like at least from Uldren's side, free these barons, get them running amok again, keep VIP 2014, which is us, the Guardian, occupied with this while I go do the real mission.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing here in that cutscene of him getting the Shard of the Travelers. That's his real mission there. He's still trying to free his sister. Free me, free me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
No, I think
yeah.
that's absolutely what was happening. Uldren was a master of the spy network, a very skillful, skillful in subversion, and in military tactic. And although he may be a little crazy at the
Absolutely.
moment, that's not to say that he isn't still utilizing some of those skills to give the Guardian a wide array of distractions and smokescreen to allow him to do what he wants to do.
Yep.
So I think that's definitely what's happening there. And our Guardian and is working with Petra, who is also seeking vengeance against Uldren, not just for the death of Cade, because Cade was a close friend of hers, but also for the like just the atrocities that he did to the Awoken people prior to him being captured, or giving himself up, as well as she sees him as he's a madman that needs to be stopped.
Yep.
And so we continue with the Forsaken story, and it ends us at this place called the Watchtower. And the Watchtower is the entrance to the Dreaming City from the Tangled Shore. And we have tracked Uldren to this Watchtower, and our Guardian is making their way up it, fighting through Fickrel and various Scorn bodyguards and such. And we're fighting our way up this tower, and as we're going, it's constantly shifting between our plane and the Ascendant plane, and our plane and the Ascendant plane. And as we're going, we're hearing finally what Uldren is hearing. I believe when we shift into the Ascendant plane, we can actually hear this vision of Mara talking to him.
Oh yeah, we definitely can. And isn't Tolan there too, like helping guide us?
Presumably any of the little like black dots that you get close to and then they zoom off somewhere else and then you get like guiding you in that way are supposedly Toland in general.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, he may be guiding us in some way. He definitely is once you get to the dreaming city.
Yep.
Um but so we're fighting our way up and we're hearing her now every now and then as the tower shifts, we're hearing her like telling at him, free me, combine the light and the dark. It's the key to open the watchtower. It's the key to get back into the dreaming city. And he is struggling a little bit. He's like fighting against it at this point. Even Uldren is finally like starting to realize this doesn't feel right. Mara wouldn't want me to open the gates to the dreaming city. Like that was our place. That was the Awoken's place. This doesn't feel right. And so he's kind of going back and forth and he's almost fighting himself in doing it. And as we get to the top, he's finally overtaken by the commands of this vision of Mara. And he does it. He takes the light, he like sucks the light from the shard of the traveler into himself, and the light from the shard and the dark energy that was swirling in him kind of like mix and combine and stream out of him into the door of the watchtower, uh, making that combination of light and dark that symbolizes the Awoken. And he unlocks that door to the dreaming city. And we see now the darkness is completely drained from his eyes. Those swirls are no longer there. That power has served its purpose. And he sees his vision of Mara above him, kind of like hands outstretched. And he reaches up to her, thinking himself successful. And then he finally sees this thing for what it really is, an avatar of Riven. And
all tentacles and teeth.
All tentacles and teeth. The in-game model is essentially like a servitor with just this gaping mouth, round mouth of teeth and tentacles that are grabbing him and pulling him in. And I think technically it does eat him, like it swallows
I
him.
remember him getting like eaten in that, but like he didn't really get eaten.
Right,
Like
yeah.
I think that's Riven wish magic doing freaky Riven wish magic thing. Like but it's a freaky thing. Like it. Oh, I wonder is the model still in Gambit?
I think they took the meatball out of Gambit.
No,
I certainly haven't seen it in a while. Although maybe it's just
they might
luck.
have. They might have. So for those of you that don't know, the model that was used for this, which do you remember the exact name of the creature that eats him?
It was something of the Thousand Voices. And Riven,
because it wasn't Riven himself.
No,
It was like
I think it was Voice
Vision
of Riven or Vision
something.
of Riven.
Voice of Riven.
Yeah,
maybe that's what it was. Voice of Riven. Voice of Riven of 1,000 Voices, or Vision of Riven of Voices, something like that. Anyway, but the model that they used there for that was the same model that they used in a quest to get a gun called Malfeasance from the Drifter through Gambit, and everyone affectionately called it the meatball because it was round like a meatball, and then like the front of it kind of looked like a the surface of a meatball, but then it had like tentacle hands, and it's a freaky model. Like it truly is kind of like the stuff of nightmares. And so for Uldren to be like reaching up into like Mara's arms kind of like wrap on the inside of his forearms and pulls him up, and he's like, yay, I did it, and closes his eyes, and when he opens his eyes it's just all tentacles and teeth, and he's like, ah! So yeah, I can only imagine like what was going through his head with when he sees this at point blank range.
Yeah. So this is the point where our guardian comes onto the onto the field and essentially sees Uldren unlock the door and then get eaten.
Yep.
Um, and we fight the meatball. We fight this avatar of Riven, and destroy it. And in doing so, Uldren is I don't want to say saved.
Yeah, saved is a strong word
Right.
there.
He's alive and no longer inside of this thing. It spits him out essentially as it dies. Um and so the very last scene of the main Forsaken campaign is Uldren laying on the ground, kind of breathing heavy and sputtering, his eyes clear for the first time in probably years. Having, that power having done what it was supposed to do.
I was fixing to say that darkness that was corrupting him, that was all Riven. Like
Yeah.
that whole goal, that everything about him going crazy, well, not going crazy, but all of that madness that's been driving him this whole time, that black stuff in his eyes, that's been Riven this whole time. And for it to finally be out of him, it's almost like he's back to like his, I don't want to say pre-garden time, but he's definitely back to like a maybe like a just free of the black garden
Yeah.
state of mind.
So say he's lying across the ground. Ace of Spades has spun out, out of his grasp, fallen elsewhere. Our guardian has retrieved it, has picked it up, and our guardian and Petra are now approaching him, guns drawn, aiming down at Uldren, and he says that most infamous of lines. Everything I did for her. The line between light and dark is so very thin. Do you know which side you're on? And our guardian and Petra kind of, look at each other and nod. And then it fades to black, and you just hear the gunshot as Uldren Sov is killed.
Finally, after shit, billions of years, that's just mind blowing. Like,
Yeah, so with the death of Uldren and the opening of the Watchtower, our guardian, through a quest line, now has access to the Dreaming City, which was, until this point, only the Awoken ever knew about and ever went there. And in doing so, we actually have some additional kind of campaign epilogue type missions.
is it the three weekly missions?
Well, we have an intro mission and then the weekly missions.
Right.
But essentially, the intro mission is Petra has now entered the Dreaming City. Uldren's opened it, and this thing came out of it. And Petra's now saying, like, we got to get in there and figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah. Is this the first time that Petra's been back to the Awoken City since? No, she had to have been coming and going since. Well, I guess this would be the first time she'd been there since Uldren was captured.
I think since the Taken War. I think it's been locked since the Taken War.
Oh, because maybe Mara might have locked it, or like Ilin the scene from that we said last week where the three Techians like spoke the word of stasis and Riven clamped shut on them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you're right. I think it has been sealed since the Taken War. So this is literally like the first time anyone's set foot on it in like 4 years.
Right. So
Holy cow.
Petra is now, into the Dreaming City. She's seeing it overrun with Taken and eventually, Scorn and whatnot, but primarily Taken at this point. And she's like, this is not right, but I might have a way to contact Mara in the Dreaming City. because Petra is still very much like she has got to be alive. She promised me she would be alive. She is definitely going to answer me when I reach out in this way. And that way is the Oracle engine that we had talked about 2-3 episodes ago, something like that.
The Oracle engine still blows my mind. Like that thing is a powerful thing.
Yeah, the legacy of Kelda Waj, the greatest Techian that there ever was.
The All Mother, right?
Yep, the All Mother. The Oracle engine still stands untouched, untainted, and we help Petra in the intro mission get the materials she needs to power it for a short time. And in doing so, she gets a message out to Mara, and Mara responds and confirms finally that yes, she is still out there. She is still alive. She is doing things that only she can do, presumably, elsewhere, but that she's aware that Petra is in need of some direction and that she is, she will offer it via the Oracle engine.
I still think that Mara is I think Mara has attained godhood at this point in time. Like her whole stint of her going through the ascendant plane and coming back out the other side, back through her own throne world, back into the dreaming city. I truly think that she whatever she did there caused her to become a god. I think she is a god.
I think we could argue there are many levels of godhood.
This is
Oryx
true.
was called a god. Savathun
This is true.
was called a god.
This is also true.
Oryx was strong in the conventional sense. Savathun less so. So
strong in the mental sense.
We could say that Mara is a god, but I think it's important to make a distinction. Being a god in the Destiny universe does not mean you're immortal or omniscient or omnipotent.
This is so true. We are literally called God Slayers. Like,
yeah,
you're not wrong.
It ain't anything to us except another notch on the stock.
Another title. Okay.
But so Mara has reached out to Petra. She's confirmed I'm here. She's confirmed the Dreaming City is under attack from the Taken. These are the steps we need to take.
Because Petra issues a command to the Guardians, or I don't remember if it's an actual command or what it is, but Petra issues an order to the Guardians saying, "Hey, come to the heart of the Dreaming City, find Riven, kill her. She's been taken. Because that's right, because that's the opening line to the Last Wish. Yeah, yep. When you enter Last Wish, which oddly enough, for anyone that's listening to this on Tuesday Reset, this week's featured raid is The Last Wish and Shattered Throne. So maybe play through Last Wish this week and see some little story there. But she calls out to the Guardian and says, Riven is taken. We need to get in there. We need to find her, rip out her heart, save the Techians. And while we're in there, we find the Techians that are in there, and we're like, okay, we've already been through the corrupted. That was the strike. So we have one of the three main Techians, Sadia.
Yep.
And then the other two are the first two bosses of the raid, which is Kali and
Shirochi.
I had to pause for a second to say it again. So like that's the whole thing of the Last Wish is she issues this command, but then on the end of it, like once you get to the end and you face Riven, big ass fucking wish dragon, cool fucking fight.
Mm-hmm.
I to this day have never done it legit, and I want to do it legit so bad because I truly think mechanically and storytelling wise that the Last Wish is my personal favorite raid. I'll run it every week. But yeah, like we finally get to the end, we kill Riven, we rip out her heart, we bring it back to the Techians, they cleanse it. But then after we cleanse it, Riven talks to us.
Well, technically, Riven's been talking to us the whole raid.
That's true.
So yeah, so Petra has tasked us with, come save the Techians, and I think just says kill Riven. And while we're
Mm-hmm.
in the raid, Riven is kind of goading us. Is kind of like,
Oh, absolutely.
she starts off with like, I can make whatever you want come true. I can make your grandest wishes the
All you
reality.
need is wish it.
And then when that doesn't work, she starts to kind of goad us at like, oh, you think you can defeat me? You think you can take me on? And then when we get to her and we defeat her and we have her heart in our hands, running it back to the Techians that we have freed so that they can cleanse it of its taken corruption. She speaks to us one last time, which was, and I failed to have the line in front of me, but it was something along the lines of, you've finally done it. You've defeated me and allowed me to grant one last wish. How I want to see you when you realize what she wished for. Something along those lines.
It's such an ambiguous wording, right? Like it's like what she wished for. Who's the she? Like that's the what was the wish?
Mm-hmm.
Was the wish like or did Savathun make a wish, or did Riven make a wish, or did Mara make a? Who the fuck is she, and who did ah?
So one way or another, Riven grants one last wish. And we don't know whose it is. To this day, we don't know whose it is. We can speculate. But what us, the Guardians, have done by killing her, which is apparently the activator for this wish coming true, is we have released a curse upon the Dreaming City that it will become more and more taken as time goes on in a 3-week cycle, only for us to battle our way to the heart of that corruption on the 3rd week, which is Dul Inkaru, I believe the daughter of Savathun.
Yep.
At the heart of the Shattered Throne, which was, Mara's old throne world, which Oryx desecrated.
And that in game and that in game area was on a 3-week thing. Like you couldn't access the Shattered Throne until it was like the most corrupted week.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had to go through the actual 3-week cycle to even get to the dungeon to try to get to Dul Inkaru. This curse is powerful.
Yeah, and you finally defeat Dul Inkaru on that 3rd week, and the first time everyone thought, okay, that was it. We succeeded. And then when next reset happened, it went back to how it was immediately after Riven had been defeated. And we as players, as well as the characters in game, like Petravenge and some of the Corsairs, they know that things have reset. It's not like their memories haven't been reset. It's Groundhog Day. Like everything in the Dreaming City is now reliving the next 3 weeks over and over and over, and it's never ending. To this day, it's still going in game.
I was going to say this has been going for so this started basically the week or two after Forsaken launch. So we're talking like this has been going for 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is ridiculous.
And as this curse is happening, as this weekly cycle is happening, we, the player, are granted a few opportunities to talk directly with Mara via the Oracle engine. There are once every 3 weeks, the Oracle engine will reveal a portal into Mara's makeshift throne room, which we can enter and speak with her for a time. Eventually, she did leave and she never returned to that throne room. I think it was 6 weeks that we got, or 6 rotations that we got of her being there.
I think so. Is it 6 or 9? Those are the two that are playing in my head right now.
And honestly, not a whole lot of info in those meetings. There's a lot. There's some breadcrumbs of things, like she was having a discussion with the emissary of the Nine.
Discussion. That's a super friendly way to put that. She straight up yelled at her, "Get the fuck out of my throne room!" Like, she was pissed.
There were times where our ghost was yelling at Mara, was saying like, you're an awful leader, you are a terrible ruler, why would you allow for this to happen to your people, where have you been? Essentially all the things that we kind of wanted to ask her. And we as players and our guardian in game, we hadn't seen Mara since Forsaken, or excuse me, since Taken War. Like, years had gone by.
Like I don't know that we are, like, we the player. Oh, I see what you're saying. We the player hadn't seen her since the Taken War, but we the Guardian hadn't seen her since like the launch of Destiny.
Well, House of Wolves, but yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll give you that one. Yeah, we did go visit her a couple times at House of Wolves.
Yeah, she has been MIA for quite some time. And so like there's little matches, and she throws it right back at the ghost. She's like, you can't comprehend the things I am doing to keep you safe right now. Like, don't lecture me about protecting people when my whole life has been dedicated to protecting you and everybody else. Like, she lets him have it.
You do not speak to the Queen of the Awoken this way. That's yeah, you do not.
There's also another very important scene that is shown in that throne room, but before we get to
such a good scene.
There's a couple of lore cards I want to read that happened prior to that scene that just kind of set the stage for a character that we haven't talked about in a little bit, that I want to bring back into the limelight for a moment, and that's Julian Till.
Oh, he's like my spirit animal.
So Julian, for those that may not remember, was essentially Uldren's best friend before entering the Black Garden and him starting to go a little crazy. Uldren, and that is. So Julian has still, remained a very loyal part of the Awoken military, has survived the Taken War. And with the death of Uldren, we see Julian and have some interactions regarding Uldren after his demise. The first of which we're going to read is from the Supremacy weapon, which is from the Last Wish raid. And it goes like this. Here's the thing, he says. No. Petra's trying to hide the hurt in her expression. Watching her is exhausting, so Julian keeps his eye pressed to his sniper scope. I thought you'd want to see it. Why? He's dead. He died a long time before you shot him. Or you didn't, Julian says, as if Petra flinched. You helped a guardian do it. Julian, Petra starts. He holds up a hand. I'm not interested in your secrets. And then, quieter. Please, Petra. Silence falls over them as they lie side by side in a sniper's nest overlooking Rhea Silvia. Both belly down in the sand, clutching well-worn supremacy rifles beneath their armpits. Petra takes a shot. A taken hive night seethes into nothingness. Finally, she gets up to go. Julian rolls onto his side, pushes himself half up, and calls after her. I still dream about the garden. She looks back. I've dreamed about it too, she says carefully. Not like I have. Julian licks his lips. trying to figure out if he has anything else to say. He finally decides that he doesn't, so he rolls back onto his belly to settle his cheek against the supremacy once more. That's all. I just wanted someone else to know. And that's the end of that lore card.
It's like he's acknowledging his PTSD at this point.
A little bit, yeah.
Like we talked about it a lot. Like he always like when Uldren first came to him, it was like, oh my God, we got to talk about this. I've been recording my dreams, da, da, da. And he's like, no, 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 no. Nobody needs to know what we saw in there. Like Julian was very much full on PTSD, and like, yeah, he just it's this is why I see him as my spirit animal, because me have been in the military, been on deployment a couple times. Like it's a hard thing to talk about and to live with it. And the once you can get to the point to where you can acknowledge, okay, these were events that happened, that's like the start of the healing, right? Like that's, and so to me, this is like seeing, like for Julian to mention to Petra, like, hey, I still dream about it. Like but to be able to live a normal life and still dream about it, be like, hey, I just need somebody to know that I'm still thinking about this, and this is still a thing. Like it's really touching to me. It really is.
Yeah.
And I love that the very first time we ever heard of Julian, he was using these supremacies. I mean, all the way back at the beginning of the shoot, was that all the way in Maracina, or was that Fallen
That
Prince?
was the first couple entries of the Forsaken Prince, yeah.
Oh my God! Like he's he's just a sniper. He's just a damn good sniper. And to see it like come full circle, to be on the supremacy itself, be a story about like who else would be on the lore card of supremacy, right? Other than Julian, like.
So and through his interaction here, he's telling Petra, like, I don't want to see Aldrin's body. I want to see him. I don't want to say goodbye. He's been gone a long time as far as I'm concerned. Is essentially what he's saying. He's very I don't want to say he's closing himself off to even thinking about Aldrin.
Yeah.
And Petra is maybe feels like that's not the right thing for him, feels like he needs to acknowledge that in some way, but understands that she's not winning this argument.
Yeah.
And what I really like is another lore entry that actually came to us quite a bit later in game, in Season of the Arrivals, which is on the Holdfast Bond, which is an armor piece. That we finally see a scene of Julian coming to terms with Uldren being gone and what that actually means for him. So I'm going to read that lore card. Again, that's the Holdfast Bond. And it goes like this. I used to hate his stupid pranks. Like this one time, back when we were still in Combat Academy together, he tried to dye my dark green uniform bright yellow, which was obviously never going to work. Julian swirls the ice cubes around in his glass, listening to their soft clinking. I put it on in the morning without noticing and wore the damn thing through a whole 22-hour rotation. By the end of the day, it had stained my skin, turned my whole body from blue to bright green. Maybe that was his plan all along, Julian says and chuckles. For a moment, the bartender can see the happy-go-lucky guy that might once have been. But that was typical Uldren. Try something outrageous, only to fail more successfully than he ever intended. And just as quickly as it came, the grin fades, and he's just another traumatized soldier once again. He was never a bad person. Not until the end, anyway. He used to be funny, in a kind of irritating charming way. Like he knew that whatever it was, he was going to get away with it. And he usually did, right up until the Black Garden. That was the day he pushed his luck too far. And I helped him do it. I helped turn my best friend into a monster. Julian taps the rim of his glass, and the bartender pours another. Yeah, I used to hate his stupid pranks and his arrogance. But now that he's gone, that's the stuff I miss the most. And that's the end of that lore card.
I, I, God damn it. I'm borderline gonna cry right now. Like this is, I hadn't read that bond before, and this is still, and you still have another surprise for me
Yes, I
too.
do.
Like, this is ridiculous. I can't. Damn it. Okay. All right. Continue.
So, speaking of how people handle this loss in the Awoken community, because despite what our guardian and our player saw of Uldren, I think it's clear through the stories we've talked about in this series that he was a lot more than that to the Awoken, to the people that saw him as a hero, that saw him as a prince. And although she didn't say it or show it much, to his sister. And there's a really cool piece of dialogue that never made it in game, but that Bungie decided to publish in the fourth volume of the Grimoire anthology that talks about Mara reacting to the death of Uldren. We get a little bit of that in game. It's mostly a scene of her just saying that she knew it happened. And she doesn't really like give us any kind of emotional response for the most part. But the scene that they wrote, I wish had ended up in game, and it didn't. It's written as a screenplay, so it's going to read a little differently, but I think it's important to share.
And I'm excited because Myth has been tantalizing me with this since like, because I still don't have my Grimoire 4 yet. Myth has his, and has been holding this over me for this specific moment because he wants my live reaction to this, and I'm scared because I was ready for this kind of, but then he read the Holdfast Bond, and now I'm not ready for this. So yeah,
this is a narrative scene again that never made it in game, so I'm not sure where it was intended to be. It could have just been a vision. It could have been anywhere as far as where they wanted it to be. So I'm just going to read it as written. You can decide where it would have been or how it would have played out. But it goes like this. Exterior shores of the dreaming city at dawn. Silver waves toss the Guardian onto a spit of wet sand. They lay there, half drowned, ghost clutched in their fist. Nearby, an ancient, salt-crusted hive warship hangs suspended, inexplicably in the air, blasted into dozens of plasma-charred pieces. The shoreline wraps around a rocky coast. An elegant amethyst tower juts defiantly from the cliffside, a feat of gravity-defying engineering. Eddies of mist obscure the horizon, but the alien sky of this place is undeniable. Above, foreign moons orbit the accretion disk of a black hole. Where are we? The Guardian stands, allowing ghosts to float out of their hand. They give their gun a quick once-over. Marasov. Hundreds of my subjects have died for this plan. The Guardian snaps to attention, readying their gun. Just up the beach, partially obscured by mist, Marasov sits, hunched, kneeling in the sand. Subjects. My friends, my family. Drawing closer, we see Mara is cradling Uldren's body in her lap, a mirror of the Guardian cradling Cade's body. In death, Uldren looks frail. Mara blazes with bitter grief. She loved her brother. She loved her people too. Marasov, hundreds of the Awoken are dead because of me. Hundreds gone forever, or resurrected as a war drone for your traveler. And you don't even realize that we've done it all to help save humanity. She beats the sand. You think we're enemies. Mara glares up at the Guardian, unflinching. She's faced far worse than this since we last saw her. She's conquered death. So has the Guardian. Still, they lower their gun. The Guardian speaks. I saw something that looked like you. Some kind of illusion. Mara softens as she looks down at Uldren. Marasov. I know. She strokes Uldren's hair absent-mindedly and continues. This was not part of the plan. She forgets her audience for a moment. It's my fault he went into the Guardian. My fault he killed your friend. Ghost speaks. With compassion. That's not true. Mara looks up. She shifts Uldren to the sand. Tenderly, then rises, composed and imperious. Again, the Queen of the Awoken. She speaks. I will set this right. She steps closer to the Guardian, chin tipped upward. And you, the chosen dead, will help me. The Guardian glances at Ghost and nods. None of them notice the shadowy apparition of Cade 6 watching from the cliff tops. Final notes. The player will learn about the monster that lured them into the dreaming city and drove Uldren to madness. End scene.
What the fuck was that?
That was footage from the editing room floor.
I don't know. I don't know what to think of this. The apparition of Cade 6, like, what the fuck is that?
I think the intention was that we were going to be haunted by, like, that when Riven didn't succeed with Uldren, she was going to start haunting us with Cade.
Yeah, with Cade. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm seeing that. Okay. That would make sense. Okay.
When I read it originally, I was thinking that this was a peek at what the story could have been. That, like, we were going to, Uldren driven to madness by Riven. We ultimately killed him, or perhaps he died in some other way. And then Riven was going to start targeting us. And, like, us entering the Dreaming City for the first time would be Riven manipulating us just to pick up where Uldren left off.
Sure. I could see that.
But hard to say. They don't give us any information about where it would have been in the game if they had included it. Clearly, they couldn't have included it as is with the mentions of Cade and whatnot. But I really would have loved to see some of that dialogue from Mara, maybe in her throne room, instead of the dialogue we got regarding the death of Uldren. I just feel like up until or I said up and through Forsaken, they did a really good job of making Mara be that aloof, secretive queen.
Oh my God,
But
yes.
I would have loved a moment like this to show the humanity underneath it.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really we haven't really
Yeah.
gotten that. They've tried a little
She
bit.
always has been like this, like what you said, this aloof, this royal, this like Riven can't feed off of her because she's so sure of what her plans are going to be, and then when they come, she's like, "See, I told you that was going to happen." Like, but we never see that like that humanity side of her. Yeah.
So they've tried a little bit in Witch Queen in particular, and I guess kind of Season of the Lost, although I have some big gripes with how she was portrayed in Season of the Lost. But so to get us back on track, yeah, that scene would have been post the death of Uldren, and I wanted to include
Yep.
it because I feel like it really humanizes Mara in a way that hasn't happened in game at this point in the story.
And he just wanted to fuck with me.
That too. Although, come on, that was a good one, right? That was worth waiting for.
That was good. That was really good. I tell you what though, Holdfast Bond got me emotionally right in the emotional dick. I was not ready for that one at all. Like,
well, you're welcome, I guess.
I guess I don't know. I thank you. I guess I don't know what to do with this bit of information.
But so so that was a scene that didn't play in the game. A scene that did play in the game in Mara's throne room, which was incredibly
God,
important, is we approach her throne room and she's not there. And we're like, okay, what's going on? And so we go to the war table that's in her throne room. We find that there's a inspect button where there hasn't been before. We inspect it, and we get a cutscene. And the cutscene is high above Rhea Silvia in the Dreaming City, and it's of this little ghost, this little pink purplish ghost, who's flying around Rhea Silvia now that the Dreaming City has been opened. Where else is a ghost going to look for their potential guardian, apparently?
I mean, some of them donned some hive chitin and waited even longer.
I mean, yes, this is true. But we have this little ghost that we're following, and he's kind of zooming through Rhea Silvia and scan this random bush and scan this random pillar or whatever, and he comes across this pedestal, this almost altar-looking pedestal with a cloth that has been thrown over top in a very ceremonial way, bearing the emblem of the queen, I believe. And the ghost scans over this cloth and then stops and expands, and a burst of light comes from this ghost, and gasping from under the cloth comes Uldren Sov, reborn as Crow.
Boom! That was like the big, like at the time, that was the biggest kick in the face, in the gut, in the dick, into everything to the entire, like the Destiny community lost their freaking minds after this scene came to light. They were like, what the hell does this mean? Is he the new Hunter Vanguard? Did he complete the dare? Like, what in the hell is happening? And this wasn't even like the first or second transmission. This was like, I want to say this was towards the end. This was like the sixth or seventh transmission in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we're talking, this is on a 3-week cycle. So we're talking, this is 6 times 3. That's a ways out. That's 18 weeks after the beginning of the raid. So I mean, that was a long time to be kind of hit in the face with this scene. Like, where the hell is this going? So yeah, little pulled pork, now Glint.
Yep. Glint's name was originally Pulled Pork.
Yep. And it's funny that you mentioned he scanned a bush, because in one of the original entries of Pulled Pork, he scans a rock, and one of the other ghosts is like, "What are you doing? Is your guardian in the rock?" And Pulled Pork, "I don't know. That's why I check." They say check everywhere, so I check everywhere. Maybe he's inside the rock. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as Crow though, like we're not going to cover all of Crow's story in here.
No,
That's
sorry.
way too long. We have a whole series devoted to Crow. Go check them out. We basically cover from his resurrection all the way till what are essentially the
Season the
next thing
Lost.
that happens here. The did we go all the way through Lost? I couldn't
We
remember
go
if
all
we
the way
did.
through Season the Lost. So the only thing that's not included in that is what's happened to him in game in the most recent seasons since Witch Queen, and all of those are available to play. So,
Yep. Play them.
There you
Play
go.
the seasonal story, people. Play the game. Do the stuff.
But so sticking with our Awoken series, we're not going to go off into Crow because he's kind of outside of the Awoken at this point.
He's a guardian now.
Yeah, after that that resurrection cutscene, I think it's one, maybe two more weekly cycles through. Mara gives us the message of, I can't stay here. I'm not going to stay at the Dreaming City. I need to leave because I have a war to fight elsewhere. I'm going to trust you and Petra to hold the line here in the Soul System, and I'll be back. And then she leaves, essentially.
Poof.
Just poop.
Gone to the ether.
And she stays gone for a long ass time.
Yeah.
Pretty much from that moment in Forsaken, which was a couple months into the Forsaken expansion, Mara does not reappear until Season of the Lost, post Beyond Light.
Yeah.
The season before Witch Queen, even.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking almost 3 whole expansions there that we don't, or 2.5, we'll say.
Yeah, it is a long time. During that time, there's really not much to talk about. It was mostly just the Awoken were stuck in this curse cycle, repeating those same 3 weeks over and over and over, trying to find a way to break it unsuccessfully since it's still going on. And Mara was off fighting on a different front. And so in game, presumably, as well as in real life, years go by.
Yep.
And we finally get a hint that what Mara has been doing all this time, and that we may see her again during Season of the Hunt, which is the season that launched with Beyond Light. During there were these communications, Vanguard communications, that you could go to Zavala's office and listen to. Most of them were from Osiris, kind of dictating journal entry style what happened to him leading up to the loss of Sagira. But one of those was from Mara Sov. And that transmission just says this: to all corners of the system, I've emptied the armories on the fringe, sent corsair warship fleets, deployed harbingers, and yet the Black Fleet persists. I know what it's taken from you. Petra, I've been away too long, and for that I apologize. Your compassion and leadership have been a boon to me and our people. This all started with the Dreaming City. I shall return to finish it. Savathun will be waiting. And the transmission ends.
And that's such an important thing too there, because she talks about, like, I mean, she emptied the armories, like, holy shit. First off, but at that point in time, we had there was the season of, and I can't even remember the name of it now, but it was basically the season of Rasputin. And during that season, when we were inside the bunkers, there was a map of the Sol system, just kind of like an LED map. Like, you could see, like, there was the sun, there's Mercury, there's Earth, there's Moon, there's there's Jupiter, there's Saturn, and like each week, the it would have a set of red dots in the shape of triangles on the far end of it, outside the heliopause, out past Saturn, out past Neptune, out past Uranus. Haha, had to put that in there. And they were slowly moving in. And like when Beyond Light hit, like I want to say like literally, so that season happened right before Arrivals, and then Arrivals happened, which now they're there, and there was a cutscene where like there's just a wide shot of the surface of Jupiter, and this black triangle just kind of comes over the fucking darkness sound and everything, and yeah, like that. So so that happens, and this transmission happens like a season later, 2 seasons later, like after season of Arrivals, to say, hey, I've done everything I can. I did my final stand. I hope to God that y'all have figured something out by now, because I'm coming home and we're gonna figure this out together.
Yeah. So we get a hint that Mara has been fighting the Black Fleet outside of our system, expended her resources, and is coming back. And that leads us into kind of the prelude to Season of the Lost. I'm going to try and get through some of this quickly-ish to keep us hopefully under the 2.5 hour mark. But we're going to be going through the Pathfinder set. And
this was the set that came out with
Season of the Lost.
Correct?
Yep. Okay. So to give some distinction here, Mara is out on the outskirts of the system, and the Awoken are concerned about something called ley lines, which has been, I think, is first established during Season of the Lost. The ley lines are naturally occurring kind of paracausal hallways that exist within the Ascendant realm that you can use to traverse vast distances across the material world. So
think of it as like when you're in Minecraft and you go to the Nether and you travel 8 blocks. No.
I mean, whatever example you got to use.
Exactly.
But so the Awoken are concerned with these ley lines, because wherever those ley lines cross is a spot that something can pop out of. And Petra sees these ley lines as a path for Mara to return to the Dreaming City with. Whereas the Techians see these ley lines as a danger. And that is where we get into the Pathfinder set. And this is going to show the story of the kind of new group of Techians, the new coven, as well as explain kind of what led to the events of Season of the Lost, as far as like what we were doing in that season. So we're going to start with the Pathfinder helm, and it goes like this. Petra stood at the bordering cliff's edge of the Devillian mists, wrapped in a concealing vapor. Beside her, Ilin, Techian Coven Mother. A deluge of water spewed from deep within the stone below. Gentle tremors rippled through their bodies without notice. The pure sky above them tore like well-worn fabric as fronds of malignant taken growth crept into the Dreaming City. They will be upon us soon. It is not enough to simply halt Oryx's advance, Petra said. She had spent months of conversation building the kindling to an idea in Ilin's thoughts prior to the Battle of Saturn. A new coven, a new class of sister recruits. Now, with the Queen's flagship in ruins and the coven missing several of its most skilled Techians, there was no longer the luxury of refusal. I can't hold the reef with corsairs alone. I can't search for the queen with looking glasses and a depleted armada. We need more Techians, Ilin. You know I'm right. Ilin shook her head. We are not weapons for the queen's wrath to command. The Coven's reluctance to forge the next link in the chain of their lineage was a strong one. Since the formation of Eleusiniya and the exploitation of Riven, the elder Techians had grown protective of their arts. Techniques and texts were kept close. Despite all that, Petra knew Ilin had always been listening to her words. She too had dreamt of the Harbinger's failure, of Oryx taking her sisters. We will snap the ley line shut and seal the city, Ilin concluded. No, Petra retorted. The queen is lost and might still return. She turned to the Coven Mother. Of your 7, how many are still alive? Petra felt a mournful flame stoking beneath Ilin's visor. Precisely, Ilin said. We haven't the strength. Then heed my requests. Petra waved away the mist between them. Train more sisters. Ilin finally broke her gaze with the sky and scowled at Petra. We haven't the time. Training spans decades. Make it work, Petra demanded before taking a breath and continuing. Ilin, I will do whatever you need. Please, can we work through this together? Ilin's head sunk. She leaned over the cliffside, over the stream of plummeting mist, and watched the flow of water drop into endlessness. Send me your candidates. I hope they're stronger than you were. And that's the end of that lore card.
I was with you all the way to the end, and I almost did the drifter. Oh, like that was kind of a ugh. That was a kick right in Petra,
a little bit,
right in her gut.
A little
bit. Yeah. So this is very much the commander of the Awoken. Like you will do this. Like do whatever it takes. Like I don't care if that's like in the movies where they're like, oh, this is gonna take 6 hours, and they turn around like you have 3.
Yeah.
Like that's what's happening here. So yeah.
So Petra is, forcefully convincing Ilin, we need to train more Techians because we need people to protect us and look for Mara and try to help Mara come back. And so Ilin very reluctantly agrees, and presumably creates like a crash course for Techian arts.
That's what I see it as, like Techian arts for dummies. that's what it is.
So we get some glimpses into the training for some of these Techians. In the next one, which is the Pathfinder chess piece, which goes like this. Cesari shifted on the wooden operating table. Why must she be the first? She probed the jelly-like substance smeared across her forehead as Elder Kali entered the room. Don't touch that. It's an antiseptic and a binding agent, Kali said, placing a sizable blue crystal-adorned mask next to an assortment of scalpels, hooks, and erosion stencils. Each tool was etched with ceremonial iconography and freshly sharpened. Normally it takes years to become an adept among our rank, but the Queen's Wrath believes time is short. If you survive, these arguments will expedite your training and enhance your abilities. Kelly turned away to work on a mortar and pestle. You will need to learn to focus under duress. Remove your mind from this place. Sink into the cosmic. Project out from yourself. There is no pain, no flesh, no nerves. Sejari gripped the sides of the operating table and pressed her back flat until no air existed between her and the surface beneath, until she felt herself a part of it. She told herself to ignore the grinding of the pestle and the thought about how Petra had taught her to use the physical as a transitory conduit to the ascendant. Drink this, Kali ordered, handing Sejari a small cup of queen's foil tea. Sejari opened her eyes and released her grip as her meditation broke. Yes, elder sister, give me a moment to focus, please, she pleaded, hastily gulping down the tea. You think my voice is sharper than this knife? Kali asked, lifting the scalpel from her table. Duress. You must push through if you are to survive. Be strong, or you will die. This is your final test. Sejari drank quickly and pressed herself to the table once more. She focused on her fingertips and the feel of hand-worked wood. The grain formed diminutive pathways for her nails to trace, tiny patterns hidden away within the enormity that surrounded them, only revealed by shrinking one's perspective. She let herself drift. Kali threaded the thin metal edge directly through to the bone of Sejari's skull. A line of incision opened a wave of red, searing penetration through the layers. Overwhelming electrified senses, they gave way to a calming sting in the discordant firing of nerves. A pattern, a texture, the split between what was and what could be. In her mind's eye, Sejari saw the ley lines unfurl like budding petals of a living blossom, nebula-like plumes of pollen. She let herself slip away until the pain of her flesh was only one of many choices that lay before her. And that's the end of that lore card.
Did Callie just scalp her?
She's affixing the visor that we see all of the Techians wear is apparently permanently affixed to their skull via this operation. And so their final test as a Techian to prove that they
is to do this without fucking sedation.
Is to be able to meditate yourself so you don't feel the pain, essentially.
Get the fuck out of here. Dude, okay. All right. I'm with Petra on this one. Screw the Techians. I'm going to go be a wrathful soldier. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'll take the Corsair route, please.
Yeah. No, thank you.
So...
Holy shit.
And presumably all of the new Techians went through this. We just saw
oh my God.
The first was Sejari. Yeah.
Wasn't ready for that one. Holy crap. You just hit me with all these things live too.
You're welcome.
I wasn't ready tonight. Okay. I should have prepared myself.
But
that's fine.
I gave you the reading list, although it was a little shorter notice this time around.
This is true. This is true.
So we're gonna keep moving along with the Pathfinder set. So we can see like the what's happening here. Petra pushing. We need more Techians, and the Techians fulfilling her request. Although they're doing things, Kelly said like normally this doesn't happen until years into your training, but it's happening now because we don't have another choice. I hope you live, essentially.
Yeah.
So that leads us into the Pathfinder grips, the gloves. And it goes like this. Yulia placed her hands on the focusing crystal once more. It had been months since she had seen the stars. Her view every day was instead of the same stone chamber she shared with 12 others. It doubled as both training ground and lodging for a new crop of Techians. The mustiness made Yulia crave the open air of the dreaming city's skyward turrets. She imagined them piercing the sky like masts and drawing the clouds into sails. In her mind, the whole city sailed through the ascendant ocean, navigating the ley lines like currents. Yulia placed herself there, a voyage, a turret crow's nest in search of distant land, ascendant anchors restraining cloud sail billows against the wind of her will. She tried to introduce that place to this one, to let them meet and exchange atmosphere. Make this real, she thought. But it was nothing more than a thought. The concepts were familiar, but the execution was still foreign. Yulia adjusted the crystal in her hands as if the orientation mattered. Of all her sisters, only she still couldn't shape the ley lines. They're going to shift soon, you know, Alston chided. I know, Yulia spat back without looking. An explosion shook the room, raining plumes of dust over them and breaking their concentration. Damn it! Yulia slammed a fist into the smooth stone and cast the crystal orb across the floor. Why are we training in a war zone? Alston watched the crystal skip to the edge of the chamber. This place is built upon a crossroads of ley lines. If you can't align with them here... Don't say it, Yulia hissed as she stood to retrieve the crystal. I need to try again. As she walked, the wall before her illuminated and split into a doorway. Petra Venge entered the chamber, haggard, soot dulling the sheen of her armor. Yulia stopped in her tracks. She hid away her embarrassment, despite knowing that Petra hadn't seen her cast away the focusing crystal. Petra's foot tapped the crystal. She bent and scooped it from the ground and looked to Yulia's empty hands. Do not lose this. There aren't many left. My apologies. I need to try again. Petra scanned the faces of each of the 13 would-be Techians before her. The creases beneath their eyes drew deeper from stress and lack of sleep. I had trouble just the same. Let me show you how I did it. And that's the end of that card.
Oh, little Techians in training. So, no.
Yeah.
I don't know whose side to pick now.
It's so cute.
No,
They're
I'm
stuck in
going
a
Corsairs.
cave and being forced to do this in an active war zone.
I mean, yeah, I choose Corsair. That's cute though. Like Petra's like hey, let me show how I did it, and then all the younglings. Oh, how'd you do it? Yay! Like yeah,
yeah.
I like it.
So Petra's at least understands this. This is a lot. I mean, Petra went through the Techian training to at least a point before she ended up leaving, but she's been through some of this. She understands what they're going through and what she's asking of them by saying we need them trained. So that brings us to one of these Techian trainees that we need to pay particularly close attention to. And that is the trainee Austin that was mentioned briefly in the previous card. They have an interaction in this next one that's pretty important to what happens next. So this is the card from the Pathfinder's legs, the leg armor. And it goes like this. Austin sat in silence with eyes shut. Ley lines swept over her in waves, in pulses, which she slowly brought into alignment with her own. Entanglement. It was not the first time she had pressed herself into symbiosis with the ascendant plane. She'd been through the thoughts of all the sisters in her coven. She had dreamt with Petra and harvested secrets from her, with the Queen's wrath being none the wiser. Austin knew they were meant to save Queen Mara Sov. They were meant to find her and restore the throne. She had been searching the ley lines for a path to the queen each night after her training. Her coven sisters lay sleeping all around her body, but her mind flew through countless panes of prismatic glass. As they shattered, she flitted from one plane to the next, catching momentary glimpses of incommunicable wonder. In the distant cosmos far ahead, Austin saw a darkened haze of indecipherable noise. Somewhere nestled in the ley lines, this shadowed spot was growing. Austin knew Morosov was distant. She knew the queen had obscured herself from her enemies. Austin had felt a presence reach from the noise toward the dreaming city more than once. Tonight, she would reach back. Austin focused her will on a path to the distant noise, and as she did so, it was. The way was open, but still so far. She reached out with her physical body, placing a hand in the air before her and splitting the oxygen with her touch. She carved a slit in reality through the molecules of the air, and the path anchored to it at her command. The noise descended upon her, and instantly she was at the precipice. Hand-pressed, frozen, paralyzed, and awash in insidious whispers that shredded the doorway into open nothing. It tore her consciousness across the cosmos to a grand terrace of onyx swords and emerald flame, reigning over a red harbor. Fingers reached like blades from distant hollows, screaming noise upon noise. A lone figure stood on the terrace aside two empty thrones, testing, prodding, tasting, breeding war. Austin! A familiar voice pried her back into the waking world. Austin, are you all right? She woke. Soaked in sweat and heat, Petra Venge stood over her, gripping her shoulders. Austin struggled to breathe. Her eyes met Petra's. Austin? They'd leave you behind if they knew what you just saw, she thought to herself. Just a nightmare, Austin reassured the Queen's wrath. Thank you for waking me. And that's the end of that lore card.
Yeah, that was not a nightmare. Say that line again. What is it? Breeding, living, war?
Testing,
with two thrones?
prodding, tasting, breeding, war. A lone figure stood on a grand terrace of onyx swords and emerald flame, aside two empty thrones.
That's Zevo Wrath.
It's absolutely Zevo Wrath.
That is Zevo Wrath if I ever heard of a description of a Zevo Wrath. Yeah, that's holy shit. So what? Okay, so this lone little Techian who thinks that I got the gift and goes on their own little expedition in through the ley lines post hours, like you should be sleeping, and then finds said something. What the hell does she find?
So she essentially finds a dark spot in the vision of the ley lines. She finds this shrouded area that she can't see through, and she knows, like in her mind, she's going, well, I know Mara is trying to protect herself, is trying to keep herself hidden. Maybe this shrouded area is Mara trying to conceal herself. And she said that she's sensed a presence of some sort come from that shrouded area of the ley lines and reach out towards the dreaming city before. So in her head,
okay,
she's going, oh, that's Mara trying to get back.
That's got to be Mara.
I'm going to make a connection with her, and I'm going to save the day and bring her over into the dreaming city all on my own.
Stupid.
Turns out.
Stupid.
That dark spot is the throne world of Shivu Arath. And Shivu, yeah, has been reaching out to the Dreaming City to send troops.
Yup.
And
Well,
Austin has just made
plan
connection with Shivu's throne world, albeit briefly.
and then just brushed it off. Petra came in and was like, "Hey, oh, it's just nightmare. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's all
Well,
fine."
because she's afraid of like they would kick me out if they knew what
Oh,
what
they'd
I
kill her.
just saw.
I think they'd kill her.
Maybe, yeah.
Like you just invited Zero Wrath into the Dreaming City. Like, see, kids, secrets hurt someone. Secrets are no fun.
Now try telling Mara that.
Well played. Well played.
So our we're gonna finish off the Pathfinder set with the events immediately before Season of the Lost. Kind of the events that happen that lead us into what our Guardian has to do during Season of the Lost. This is on the Pathfinder class item, and it reads like this. Petra watched Sadia preside over the 13 of the new coven. A mixture of pride and fearful anxiety knotted in her stomach, as if the interior of her skin was being tugged into her gut by warm sinew strings. She held the shape of her smile until they had taken their positions within the blind well. Austin, Ilya, Sijari formed the core of the party, while the others interlinking in an exterior circle. They situated themselves at the key points around a thrumming wayfinder's compass that bent the air into wild chromatic slurries. The well awakened. They prepared their minds, slipping into meditation. Communion in searching. 13 voices spoke as one, and then silence as the well dropped into prisms of glass beneath the novice coven's feet. Not but a moment ago, the 13 stood within the blind well, hands and minds interlocked. Now, they cascaded through a river of possibility, will, and intention. It was not long before the connection was made. Queen Morosov's voice filled their thoughts, and they drew to it like gravity. The Coven sisters skipped between ley lines, ricocheting from time to place until they found themselves swirling in the whirlpool accretion of a brilliant Celestine goddess, their queen. Not far beyond it, Austin again saw the dark noise. She kept her eye upon it while each of her sisters reached out until the image of Morosov manifested and her words found footing in understanding. They focused their will upon her words, and before them a pale screen of fog and glass gave way into a distant ley line beyond Soul. "You have done well, my Techians," said Mara, stepping from the nothing into their presence. She placed her hand on the Wayfinder's compass. "Take me home." The Coven turned their minds back to the Dreaming City, to safety, to Petra. But as they began their return journey through the ascendant plane and across the ley lines, they felt the presence of another watching. At the edges of the accretion, a din of distorted noise pursued them. Mara glowered at Austin before turning and raising her palms. With a single word, the ley line shattered behind them, sending a lance of energy through the heart of the noise as they sped away toward the dreaming city. "I will not suffer a bloodied mongrel at my heels," whispered Mara. "Keep your focus. She will be back." Austin could feel the noise encircling them again, as it had done to her that night in her bed. It would suffocate them in this dream. Each time the Coven shifted ley lines, so too did the noise. She knew they could not escape it, and through her, so did her sisters. It descended upon them, and as it grew, the noise manifested into whispers. Austin's mind could think of nothing but one name, Shivu Arath. She could see the dreaming city, but the image wasn't clear. The sharpness of the connection was darkening. Her sisters felt her worry. They did not have the strength to escape. Their minds aligned on an action. Austin grabbed the compass and placed it in Mara's hands. We will ensure your arrival. Each sister shifted her thoughts from the dreaming city to her own corner of the ascendant plane, and with a burst of will, they scattered themselves across the ley lines. The noise halted momentarily, and then split in every direction to follow them. Morosov crashed to her feet as she connected with the floor of the blind well. My queen, Petra looked to quickly sealing rift from which she fell. Where are the others? And that's the end of that lore card.
I mean, that explains exactly what we were doing in Season of Lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the whole purpose. Like as you're going through Season of Lost, which was the season that led up to Witch Queen, like you're going through all these different ley lines and all these different ascendant planes to try to get these Techians back, to try to essentially rescue them one by one.
Yeah, and if we're wondering the state of these fledgling Techians as they have forced themselves to the far corners of the ascendant plane to act as a distraction for Shivu Arath so that Mara may escape, we have another lore entry from the exotic armor piece No Backup Plans that tells us exactly what it was like for them, or at least for one of them. So No Backup Plans goes like this. Austin is thrown out of the ley line into a piece of flat stone no bigger than a banquet table. High walls rise on all sides, an impossible place, a hiccup in the ascendant energies. It will do. She measures the space to the far corner of the stone cell and then faces the rippling wall of energy that deposited her there. She thrusts her hands back into the flowing magic and uses her skills as a wayfinder to churn the boundaries of the line. Soon the undertow takes hold, and the activity is enough to draw the attention of anything scrabbling through the darkness. She rests, then reaches again into the swirling magic, feeling for something that does not belong. The outstretched arm of a hive thrall, groping blindly through the turbid energy. With worrying immediacy, she finds one, thin and brittle. Part of it remains shift-bound to an unknown plane. Her hands snap shut and she twists, feeling the limbs splinter in her grasp. The creature shrieks. She steps back and uses the last of her magic to spread a thin crystal wall across the air in front of her, just as a horde of Shivu Arath's just as a horde of Shivu Arath's ravenous hive. It highlighted no in the middle of that word for some reason.
Of course it did.
Lured by the sound of suffering, force a breach in the line. They puddle and then pool, forming a deep well as they flow into her trap, held fast by the crush of their compatriots. The clot of ravenous hive builds, their claws scraping against the crystal, and Austin sits with her back to the barrier and waits for her queen. So these fledgling Techians threw themselves to the outer reaches of the plane, made themselves bait by drawing the hive of Shivu Arath to them, and then just created barriers and sat and waited and hoped that someone was going to come for them.
Like one-person barriers too, like the tiniest of spaces.
Yeah, the space of a coffee table was what she was sitting on, essentially. So, but yeah, it was rather recent. But for anyone that didn't play Season of the Lost, our guardian at this point is, Mara has just arrived via the method described in these cards, has just arrived in the Soul System, has struck a deal with Savathun at the time to remove her worm in exchange for, I guess,
I think for
assistance.
Osiris.
Well, for us, it was in exchange for Osiris. But I feel like she made a deal with Mara separate of that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Queen of Secrets had to have done something secretive.
Yeah, like it might have just been the assistance in dealing with the fleet, perhaps, or something along those lines.
Oh, sure, sure. Because at the time, like that would be a like to ask essentially a what would have been a disciple to be, like, hey,
Right.
maybe come help me fight the witness rather than join him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be a huge bargaining chip there.
So, um, but essentially, she strikes the deal with Savathun. I will exercise your worm if you know do uphold this bargain, whatever it may be. But she needs Techians to do it, and all her Techians just scattered to the ascendant plane winds, and so our guardian is tasked with uh going out into the ascendant plane and finding these Techians and bringing them back so that they can perform this exorcism. Uh, and we're fighting the forces of Shivu Arath the entire time. Uh, Again, not going to get too much into Crow, but it just to note, like Crow does make an appearance at this point in the story. He meets Mara, he meets Petra. He doesn't know his connections to them until the end of the season, where Savathun gives him all of his memories back, and induces his most recent of struggles, which we see play out in Season of the Risen.
Poor guy. He's essentially the only guardian that has all of his memories.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Savathun would be the only other.
Yeah.
I guess he's not a guardian. Light bearer would be the better term there.
Right. But so as far as the story goes, the only other point of relevance that I want to point out for the Awoken in particular, is that in the Witch Queen, immediately following Season of the Lost, where Mara attempts to murder Savathun and is kind of successful, just to have Savathun then revived, unbeknownst to everybody.
that was the plan all along.
But the only other interaction we have that's relevant for the Awoken and for Mara in the Witch Queen thus far has been the Parasite quest. And essentially, the only thing I want to take away from that is Mara stating that she met the witness, and the witness showed her a vision of Mara being a disciple and helping the witness bring on the extinction of the soul system.
The final shape.
Which to Mara, who has in these entries obtained godhood, is described as a goddess, and sacrificed so much in the pursuit of power to protect humanity and the soul system, to be shown a vivid, realistic vision of the future and be told, you will be my instrument of their downfall, has shaken her up quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. Like if when you go do the mission at one of the cutscenes, like she's talking and she says something, she like turns away and like she's visibly shaken. Like she's yeah.
So the last lore card I want to read tonight is from Season of the Lost, and it returns to our good friend Julian Till one last time. Talking talking about Julian's reaction to finding that Crow is Crow, essentially. That Uldren was resurrected.
I swear to God, if you make me cry again.
So this comes to us from the Eternal Recurrence Sparrow that dropped with Season of the Lost. And it goes like this. Petrovenge found Julian on the range, as she'd expected. A lone figure lying face down on the ridgeline, sighting a barely visible target on the far side of the ravine. You never really needed a spotter, did you? No, Julian replied, squinting up at her. But I always liked the company. He offered her a rangefinder. Care to join me? Petra settled down beside him and sighted the next target. Julian pressed his eye to the Supremacy's massive scope. I heard he's back, he said. Then you heard wrong. Petra squinted through the rangefinder. You know how it is with Guardians. He goes by Crow now. Julian snorted. Ironic. Only Uldren could make immortality a demotion. Wind is 16 kilometers from your 9, 4,700 meters out, Petra replied. Send it. Julian let out a long, slow exhale, and then a deafening boom as the Supremacy kicked. Petra didn't bother to check the target. He took a lot of abuse after he rezzed, she said, breaking the silence before it could fully settle. And never knew why. Gave him a bit of humility, if you can believe it. Julian lifted his head, shifting his focus from the scope of Petra's inscrutable expression. He raised an eyebrow. I'd like to see that myself. I know. Petra pressed her lips together in sympathy. That's why I'm here. Mara thinks it's best if we limit his contact with others. Keeping him in her pocket, huh? Uldren might have changed, but it sounds like Queen Mara is the same as ever. Petra's tone hardened. Be that as it may, you've got your orders. Stay away. It's fine, Julian said with a smile, but it did not reach his eyes. I've gotten used to Uldren being dead. Probably best he stays that way. And that's the end of that lore card.
Dude, okay, one of these next seasons I want to see Julian. I want to see the reunion of the two. That's what I want.
I think now that Uldren, or that Crow has come to terms with Uldren and Uldren's memories, and has come to terms with like Mara manipulating him but still being family, like I totally think it's possible that we see a reunion between these two, and that would be so cool to me.
I'd lose my shit. I would lose my shit.
But that's it. That's the end.
Holy shit, we did it. Holy shit, we did it. 11 parts?
11 parts.
22 plus hours. We've got to be up to 24 hours.
Probably getting
Awoken
close, yeah.
History. Jesus Christ. That was the longest story to tell. That was literally the longest story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shit, now what? Do we got any shout outs?
We do. So we've got 2 shout outs in particular that I want to shout out real quick tonight. We're going to try and make the ending stuff here fast. The first shout out comes to us from Apple Podcasts. Someone left us a very kind 5-star review with the username Jadan with a bunch of A's. So their comment is titled Returning Light. They say, you guys are awesome. I just recently got back into Destiny, and you guys are connecting all the dots for me in one central location while I work. I essentially get paid to listen to you. Good job, y'all. This is another person
Hell
that
yeah.
apparently values us over their work productivity. So
You're goddamn right.
thank you.
I love it. I love to, again, I say this every week. I love that people are able to get something out of this. 'Cause I'm very much an advocate of knowledge is power, and so for us to be able to put that knowledge out there and for people to be consuming it and get something out of it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And especially as a returning player,
Yep.
as it seems that this person is. Yeah, there might be some stuff you didn't experience. So and we're always trying to approach it from the like what is the most complete version, making as few assumptions as we can so that people can
Yep.
hopefully understand, even if they didn't, play through that portion. But our second shout out for tonight comes to us from Audible. And actually, this is specifically the UK version of Audible, which I thought was kind of cool.
Ooh.
So
We're international,
I
baby.
know, right?
Hell yeah.
So this was a 5-star review on Audible. Thank you very much. Which was, I believe, from a J Mercer 09 is the username. But they say, I've been listening for a while now, and I just wanted to say that I love this podcast as I'm really into Destiny lore and listen every other night to fall asleep. Keep it up, fellas. Thank you. Hopefully that it's not like a sleep aid because we're boring. But that's it for our shout outs tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you to both of you.
Yeah.
J Dan and J Mercer. Yeah. Well, I guess I have my thank you then. Thank you, Julian. I love you. All right.
Well, there we go.
From one soldier to another, I love you. All right.
So, real quick, if you like what you're listening to, like what we're doing, we'd absolutely love for you to leave a review, Apple Podcasts, Audible, whatever it may be. Those mean a lot to us. You may hear yourself in a shout out in the future. Additionally, we have a Twitter. It's at Myths and Stories with a Z as the first S in Stories. You can reach out there if you want to leave a comment or have questions or want to have a discussion about lore. We're always up for respectful discussions there. So you can reach out that way as well. But even if you don't leave any of that, we still really are appreciative of all of our listeners. We're glad you guys were along for this ride with us.
This was a long one.
Yeah, this
was rough.
It was a never-ending story. I really love the Awoken, but holy crap, do they have a lot to talk about?
I think, and this is just kind of like a PSA. Like I think our next few couple of possibly weeks are going to be shorter stories where they're going to be like the 1 to 2 parts. I want to go back to that format for a little bit to kind of take a break from these because these bigger ones they're chunky.
Yeah.
They're good, but they're chunky. So yeah. We're definitely next week is obviously the reveal. This is it. We're next Tuesday. Shoot, yeah, in a week. We're gonna have a glimpse of what Lightfall is gonna be like. Like we're 6 months out from Lightfall, presumably. Like, holy shit. Arc 3.0 is coming out. We got all sorts of predictions and reactions and everything. So next week, to make up for our longer episode this week, we're gonna have a little bit of a shorter episode next week. It's just gonna be kind of like our predictions of where the story's gonna go, because we love doing that. Myth did so well on connecting all the dots and predicting that it was going to be the moon, that it was going to be Callus, that it was going to be it's man, myth hit the nail on the head with last season's predictions.
You're setting a really high bar here that I don't know that I can aspire to.
I am, dude. But yeah, no, I have some thoughts of my own of what next season is going to be as well. So we'll save all that for next week. We'll do a prediction video, and then Tuesday is the reveal. We may have like a late episode go out either Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning. as Myth and I do our reactions to that and say, oh my God, this is what we got right, this is what we got wrong, with new predictions, re-predictions. So next week we might have 2 episodes out. We probably will, but they'll be a little bit shorter, rather than these big long chonky ones.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, Myth, anything else tonight?
That's it.
Alrighty. Well, then from all of us lore nerds, well, we can be guardians too. To all of you lore nerds and guardians out there, we'll see you next week.